Hey everybody, before we get started, I just want to remind you this episode is brought to you by our patrons like IGO Comics, Blacklist OG, Carlos, Qua, Jeremy Vasquez, Kylie Denton, Nestor Flores, Rogue Robin, Shawnee P, some guy named Bob, Soto-san, 0424, 723, and VideoGamer75. If you like what we do and want to see us do more, consider supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early and lots of other goodies, and it really helps us out. Thank you for your support, everybody. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk FGO Wanted, the show where we let you know if you want to roll a unit of a rarity and a class. Okay, it's a 5-star. Permanent 5-star this week. Hi. But, for now, we are a show that still technically does other rarities. We're probably committed for a couple more this year, but, those videos don't do so good. So if you like those particular patterns of videos, you should watch them more. Like Izo. Truly disappointed. Where were you guys? Anyway. Why am I making this joke now? Nobody's going to be watching this video about Napoleon. They might actually, because today's video is about 5-star Permanent Archer Napoleon, released with the Lost Belt 2 pre-release banner. So, we'll be talking about all that later. As a quick reminder, this is Wanted, the show where we usually talk about 5 stars, but we talk about units of various rarities on rate-ups. It'll be broken down into 4 rough sections. 1, a character's real-life history or folklore. 2, their lore with a capital L in the Fate universe. 3, their mechanics. What do they do as a unit, etc. Because a lot of people actually care about that kind of stuff. Or at the very least, if they're rolling for a unit, they want to know what to do with him after they get him. And 4, how rare they are. Not their star rarity, but how frequently their rate-ups are, because that is always another big factor in whether or not you want to roll on a banner. So, Napoleon. Honestly, kind of surprised. Not a lot of people talk about Napoleon, both as a unit, as a person, and as a mechanical unit. I think he's decently popular because he's Big Bara, but I'm gonna guess it's probably because he precedes 2 very important limited banners, and he's a permanent in a unit with high competition. But we'll talk more about that when we talk about his mechanics later. About his actual history, so we're gonna have to give you the extremely short version, or perhaps the specific version, because Napoleon's kind of a big deal. Napoleon Bonaparte. They're literally called the Napoleonic Wars. So we would be here for like an hour if we covered everything. Luckily, Napoleon Archer, as a unit, kind of takes more from his time period as a general and Republic hero than as the emperor and dictator kind of thing. So the high level on his early life, Napoleon was actually born in Corsica to Italian nobility before moving to France. He was a young military artillery officer. Napoleon really loved artillery, guys. That's why he has a giant cannon. In the time period when the revolution started, and quickly rose to general at a very young age. He was a general at age 24, right? So, really, really big about all that stuff. Handled some various careers in the thing. Sieges, battles, all sorts of interesting stuff. Fought in a lot of the French Revolutionary Wars. A lot of famous victory from here. Another key point, though, in this, besides just all the general stuff you need to know, that he, became Emperor of the French. Napoleon I, was in those Napoleonic Wars, was exiled, came back, fought a lot of wars, tried to invade Russia and winter, all kinds of stuff. The big one is the Egyptian expedition. So, to cut off, kind of some British involvement in Egypt and with the Indies, the Napoleonic forces, Napoleon led part of the French army to Egypt, and he was elected as part of the French Academy of Scientists, so his Egyptian expedition included a lot of scientific minds, and their discoveries included the Rosetta Stone, so there were a lot of interesting bits and bobs about all this before they were ultimately pushed back. This kind of all contributes to the whole, great French general and leader attitude, which is kind of crystallized as him as a servant. If he was a different class, I should say, he might be differently. But there's a lot of history that kind of worked in there. The Napoleonic Code was a big one. He had a lot of emphasis on warfare and war style. The Napoleonic Wars were very trend-setting. His rule helped unify the metric system of measurement, oddly enough, and do a lot of other stuff. So he's got a lot of interesting notes to his names beside all the stuff that happened that people don't like about him. Old Boney as he was. Yeah. The British called him Boney because of Bonaparte. Old Boney, little Boney. Fun stuff. So that's the extreme high level. Like, honestly, there's so much written about him that you probably already know a little bit about him, and you can easily find more out. He's a big deal. If you're American, he sold us the Louisiana Purchase. So, yeah, all in all, pretty decent spread there in history. Got a lot of stuff going on. So, in Fate, what are we going for? Well, so obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but it kind of should be obvious because he's on the pre-release banner. He will be a major character featured in Lost Belt 2 as a member of our supporting cast because he's not story-locked or limited or anything. He's a guy who's going to show up. He's cool. So expect to hear a lot out of him from there. Does he have any interludes or anything? Doesn't look like it, so no additional story. I don't think he's been really featured in any events, per se. But he is, you know, a permanent, so fairly well featured. And like I said, the major thing you need to know about this version of Napoleon is that he's got the star attribute, for instance. Not that that's a huge deal, but it does matter sometimes. And it's really focusing on, like, the urban myths and legend of Napoleon, the revolutionary hero, and some of his other myths that we'll talk about when we get to his mechanics. But, like, his Noble Phantasm does extra damage versus Divine because it has the anecdote of him supposedly shooting the nose off the Sphinx, even though that's apocryphal, stuff like that. So there's a lot of interesting things going on with him that kind of configure and make him different, and make him more of just, I'm a big buff hero guy, not necessarily a, you know, emperor or anything going on there. Okay? Alright. Well, then, with your high-level basic bitch history out of the way, let's go ahead and move into the mechanics, which will probably be the longer section and the section you guys more care about. Though, hey, I don't know. Maybe you really like Napoleonic history. Who am I to judge? Who am I to judge? So, obviously, let's move into the mechanics, the bits you're probably waiting for. So, Napoleon, permanent 5-star archer, and like I said before, I think the reason why people don't talk about him more is that archers are a class with heavy, heavy competition, right? There are a lot of really good archers, and there are actually quite a lot of 5-star archers. However, his primary competition in the AoE department is Arjuna, who, while not a bad unit per se, well, he did need a buff, obviously, but that's because Vanilla Clairvoyance kind of sucks. But while not a bad unit per se, Arjuna definitely has a bit of a weird kit. You know, his primary gimmick is an AoE buster attack that causes instant death. He had a Vanilla Clairvoyance that needed fixing. He's got a caster deck, you know, he's got the Amia problem. So, while serviceable, Arjuna's not necessarily a unit a lot of people are happy to see. So that's good that they are bringing in a new, modern, very well put together, very focused. He's got a very, very standard-ass SSR buster kit. Shocking, I know. It's not shocking. That's the point. It's ironic. Yeah, so similar to my response on Oki to Alter, probably the reason why you don't hear much about Napoleon is, number one, his kit is very vanilla. It's put together, it does stuff, very vanilla. No weird special flashy effects. 2, archers, heavy, heavy competition. We're, you know, going on 3 years into the game. Gilgamesh was a very, very early servant with a very similar niche who's limited and has many, many raid ups. He's very popular. Similar with Ishtar. Ishtar's, you know, a major offensive powerhouse in the game. If you can time her mana burst right, and with her charisma and other stuff, you can do amazing amounts of damage. She has a 50% battery that can give you Pierce Invul, you know, a lot of spicy effects. She's got very robust competition. Even though he's story-locked, similarly, Tesla also fills a similar niche. I don't know, it's like they expect most Sabers to be divine or something, which they're not really. Like, honestly, they're not. I'm gonna, hold on, let me cross-reference. Because a lot of these guys have the effects to do. Technically, Gilgamesh just does bonus damage against servants, period. But, let's see, Altera has Divinity, Discordia has Divinity. That's it. That's all you got. Benienma might have Divinity, but I'm not gonna check. So it's an interesting cross-session, but, you know, trait damage can mean that you can do good damage even if technically you're neutral. You know, it's a whole thing. But, yeah. Let's actually get into the nittier-grittier of the stuff. Though, like I said, the other reason is that probably also that Sigurd, a single-target male SSR, Saber and Scotty, a meta-defining limited SSR, are both right after him, so he probably gets lost in the noise a little bit. So in terms of core stats, another reason why maybe you haven't heard of Napoleon, pretty solidly in the middle. His attack is good, but in the middle. His HP is good, but in the middle. Actually, his HP is a little bit low, but that's because, generally, archers actually have pretty decent HP spreads. But still, so he's designed that way. Archers have high star absorption, his star generation, but middling star generation. He's got 3s and 3s in his quicks and arts, and he has 2 arts. He's got a saber-style deck. So his NP charge is alright. It's decent. He has some ways to make up for that. And then he's got 2 buster cards, which gives him a little bit more offensive potential than, say, Arjuna does. So there's some maneuvering you can do there. But you've got a decent spread of his stats. 5 hit extras, obviously, really good one. So, when I said he's bog standard, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Look at his NP. Basic AoE NP. He has no interlude to increase that damage. It does do def ignoring damage, so defensive buffs and stuff don't count. And it does extra damage to divine enemies, times 1.5 damage. So, pretty decent. It's got 5 hits, though, as a buster, so you can actually get a decent amount of star gen out of it. An NP BB chain will probably generate you a decent number of stars, and the NP itself does smack divine enemies harder, so useful for clearing a lot of mobs out and softening up a boss. Overall, though, not necessarily super impressive damage-wise. We'll get into some other stuff with his skills, which, like I said, he has a very standard buster AoE package. So first up, he has a Charisma variant, Triumphant Charisma. This does the normal 10 to 20% on all allies. This includes himself. But it also gives him an additional 20% attack stack for 1 turn. So at level 1, for 1 turn at least, Napoleon gets 30% attack out of it, which is pretty decent. Like I said, his attack is middling. At maximum, at your first level, you get a total of 40% attack, or your 10th level, you get 1 turn of 40% attack up for him, and then he cruises down to 20% with everybody else. Plus, your friends get out there if you've actually got, like, a boss-killing unit or something who needs work, you know. Then he has Supporting Fire Cannon, which uses the Tactics NP, style icon. Shockingly, it increases all allies' NP strength for 1 turn, 10 to 20%, and increases all allies' critical star drop rate from 50 to 100%. This also on a 5-turn cooldown. That's right, he has a Cast Gil tier star buff, in addition to doing the old, whatchamacallit, the tactics effect, right? Now, as you'll notice, I said, he does actually have a decent amount of hits on his Buster NP. Buster does actually do a middling amount of star gen. Also, I should note, by the way, it's only 1 turn, so Gil's is 3 turns, but his cooldown is way, way longer for just the King's Return effect, right? So you get 1 turn of 2 effects for a lot shorter cooldown. So this can be definitely decent in a lot of stacks. Now, obviously, you probably want to be using it while your allies are all stacked up. Charisma, Tactics effect, increase their star gen. You may use enemies to soften up targets so that Napoleon gets better OC, right? He gets better overcharge damage. Could be a thing. But it does give you a decent infusion. And if you're using it with other Buster NPs, for instance, a lot of people probably have an Amia. He's been an option for free 4-star picks for a couple of the early ones. He's, permanently been in the game a while. You can get him on your tutorial role kind of effect. He's got a similar strat with, like, Clairvoyance, which was upgraded to Hawkeye, His NP is a buster, but it has a lot of hits. You can do a lot of star generation for a follow-up turn, in addition to clapping pretty hard with your NP. His final skill is Light of Possibilities. This is a basically variation on Pioneer. It's actually supposed to be Pioneer plus Innocent Monster, basically, like a positive Innocent Monster with also Pioneer-type effects, because of all that stuff I said about Napoleon in the first half. So, it gives you 20 to 30% battery. Not as good as Pioneer, but it's only B rank, right? It's not EX. And 20% does mean that he is K-Scope compatible. The second effect is that it gives him 3 turns of Ignore Invincible, a really decent effect. With the fact that his NP is already def ignoring, that means that he can do some very solid amounts of damage. It's hard to reduce, get that true damage style effect. And then, lastly, it gives you critical stars per turn for 3 turns, like Innocent Monster. Funny how that works. So it's not a big infusion right away, but if you're popping his battery into his NP, so you're popping his support skills, you're generating a lot of stars. You'll be generating stars over multiple turns. It's 5 to 10 stars per turn for 3 turns, so it spreads it out a little bit. And overall, you can see his deal. Like I said, pretty vanilla, but very effective. Charisma, tactics, battery, each has additional effects, so it supplements his attack further. It increases your team's star generation and gives you more consistent stars. Gives him the old Pierce Invincible effect. So he does very consistent damage, can very consistently generate stars. Like heck, even if you did like NPB Q or something, that Q and that extra are going to generate quite a lot of stars with that plus 100% buff, right? So he's got a decent spread. All of his effects help the team in some way. You know, they are AoE attack up, AoE NP up, or crit star up, and stars per turn can go to anybody. It's just that if Napoleon eats it, you can't get the buff effect anymore. Sorry, I just realized I've been talking a lot without breathing, so I took a deep breath. He's got Independent Action C and Magic Resistance C, so a little bit of debuff resist, a little bit of inherent crit strength. Not a lot compared to some of the big hitters you can get in archers, but still a decent little pinch up that lets him actually capitalize on those crits. So overall, what are you using Napoleon for? You're probably using him for pretty basic AoE sweepers. Divine is a trait that's pretty common on bosses and the like, so what you're probably going to end up doing is using him a bit like Nobu. And actually, I think, honestly, the fact that he's got these effects are like, if you're looking at him and like, hey, this kid's kind of like a 5-star Nobu that's not an Avenger type, because obviously being an Avenger, Avengers are weird, so that I think that made a lot of Avenger Nobu's skills weird, but it should shock nobody. Nobu really liked rifles and arquebuses. I feel a sneeze coming on, hold on. Excuse me, sorry. Breathing is not my strong suit. If you think about it, Napoleon and Nobunaga have some similarities, you know. So yeah, their kits are and their styles are a little similar. Nobu even has a B rank charisma; they just don't use it in her in-game kit. Funny how that works. So he's got that trait damage, which means he can probably blow up mobs pretty good, and he can get some pretty good damage stacks. If you pop both of his first 2 skills, well, actually, heck, you know, it's got Pierce Invul for 3 turns and a battery. You're probably popping his 3rd skill, too. You're looking at a Death Ignoring, Invincible Piercing NP that does bonus damage to Divine and is going to get 40% attack and 20% NP strength up for a turn. And have pretty, you know, basically doubled star gen. Not awful, but a lot of people will probably already have favorite archers who do similar things, you know. The one thing to note is that because he is a Star Servant, and doesn't have anything special going on, he is not weak to Enema Elish. So he does actually have advantages on Gil if you were to fight a Gil v Napoleon match. Interesting thoughts. But yeah, I think that's really the kicker is that Sigurd and especially Scotty are right around the corner for this guy. He's permanent, which means that everybody expects the spook factor. And just in general, he's not, much like Ogitan, he's not very flashy. Well, he is literally flashy. His NP shoots rainbows out of a cannon. But I mean that, like I said, when he has a standard kit, he has a very standard kit. This is the kind of thing all these units have to be good. But he's very modern and very well put together. Very efficient, if you're looking at that sort of stuff. Team comp, well, he's Buster and crit focused, or Buster and Stargen focused. So Merlin, obviously, that helps him charge that NP even faster. You know, helps him supply that battery. He has absolutely no survival skills, which, considering that his 4 5-star archers, his HP is on the lower side, can be tough if you're facing enemies that can get some brutal hits in. And sabers can be powerhouses, so keep that in mind. But he doesn't have any hard defenses. Merlin helps him out with that. And Merlin actually gives him the critical damage that he probably desires, because, like I said, his only actual crit damage buff himself is independent action. So, in a way, you might guess Napoleon maybe isn't meant to generate crit stars for himself, but to generate them for others. But even then, if you combine him with Merlin, he can capitalize on that. Similarly, Waver gives him damage cut, damage plus, can give him a big crit buff and help him push that NP along, you know, get in there pretty deep, though not necessary with his buffs. Other than that, it's just anything generally that improves Buster NP, etc. You know, like arguably, if you're trying to do like an all Archer setup, you know, he flows perfectly well with, say, Ishtar, right? Because Ishtar's got a big charisma. If you have Ishtar like blow up one wave, you can have Napoleon blow up another wave, kind of thing. Work together with all that stuff. And otherwise, like I said, in general, anybody who's going to give him coverage, because like I said, he has no defensive abilities at all. So anybody who can give him any kind of defensive coverage, and just in general enhance his busters and crits. So, what CEs do you use? Well, he's only got a 30% battery, so unfortunately a lot of the 50% CEs are not the bestest choice, unless you're combining him with certain. You could combo him with Merlin to get that extra 20%. You need off a Sumo. And honestly, I would probably say to go with Golden Sumo if you've got it in this case, because just in general, that's going to improve his overall efficiency, because like I said, his attack is middling. It's not like he already has a super high attack you're capitalizing on. The thing then to think about is, again, is Buster crits. So, you know, maybe Aerial Drive, if you got it for that Buster effect. You know, Victor of the Moon increases Busters and crits. You know, worst, you can do Limited Zero Over, just have him hit very big Busters. His NP is AoE, so improving its strength is not amiss either, since there's no like NP interlude or anything for him yet to increase that base damage. So, charging up Busters and NPs and letting him crit bigger is good. If you're going to combo him with other archers, you might want to... Well, I mean, you got a plus 100% star gen, so I don't know. You might be over-generating stars, but if you want to make sure Napoleon gets the crits, you might want to improve his star weight a little bit. He doesn't do that on his own. But he fits in with a lot of general kits. Does a lot of good stuff with CEs. So there's your support and there's your CEs. So, how rare is this boy? Well, obviously, he's not that rare because he's going to be permanent from now on. At any point, if you're rolling, he could pop in and surprise you. The major thing, though, is that... Okay, I gotta double check something. Hold on. The wiki's a little weird. So is CBC separate from... No. Okay, I don't know why they're listed separately. They're actually the same banner. Okay, sorry. I was deeply confused by something the Grand Order wiki does. So he will pop in a release first, this year for Lost Belt 2. Now... He was supposed to be in the Big Traveling Circus campaign, which includes a couple, but that was for like a weird promo thing that JP was doing. No guarantee that we'll get that. That was in late December, but he could easily end up in Thanksgiving's rotation, New Year's rotation, any one of those things. He's a male SSR, so obviously he shows up for the Chaldea Boys Collection event next year. Oh, he does have an interlude. Is it a Quartz interlude only? Oh no, he does have an NP interlude. I'm dumb. Damn it, I should have double-checked. I thought he would be fine, but it's not in the notes, is it? How do they not keep that up? Wiki? Now I gotta double check something. Hold on, am I being completely wrong? A to A+. So does he get that damage multiplier? No, I will not go back and edit this. This is perfect. This is a perfect show-off of how I have no idea what I'm doing ever. A+. Oh, no. Shagoogly. That's actually really good. So it does improve his damage, but also it gives him flat crit stars. So it has kind of like Wild Hunt. Which overall is just going to improve his crit star stuff. So it doesn't really change anything. It just means that after his interlude, which will be an interlude campaign part 11, which is one of his raid ups, the other one is during the 4th anniversary, he gets in the rotation, he adds a flat 20 crit stars drop to his NP. That's still like, that's next December, not this year's December, but next year's December 2021 for us, when that drops. So that's, you know, a year and a half away. But he will have a raid up then. So, yeah, there's that. Alright, don't know why I missed that. That's still pretty recent. I'm shocked that there's not an edit for that. Anyway, yeah, so basically, there will be a banner for him in that interlude campaign. His NP interlude increases his damage multiplier, the typical amount. It's not a big deal, but it helps keep him relevant with lots of other archers who have interludes that improve their NPs. And the flat star generation effect will fit into his kit very well. On top of the fact that he will also probably generate lots of stars by default. But you never know, maybe, because it's only a one-turn buff, it might be that you fire your NP, and because it's AoE, the enemy's not dead right away, so you build up enough charge to fire again without actually resetting your skills. So the 20 infusion is good. Alright. I think that is everything about Napoleon. Very interested to see how this video does. Expect, you know, they're doing the stream on the 22nd, so, we'll see some more news, I'm sure, about Sigurd there. So expect that video sometime, too, soon. That'll be very interesting to see, because we don't have a lot of single-target sabers that are SSRs, and they're, got some weird stuff going on. All right, gonna let you guys go. Hey, don't forget to like this video if you liked it. If you have any comments, you can leave them in the comment section down below. You can also hit us up on our Discord. That link is in the video description and on our channel page, as always. If you're new here and haven't already, please subscribe to our channel to always get our latest videos, like new Wanteds, like our show Let's Talk FGO, and more. It's a real fun time. And, yeah. Also considering that bell for notifications so you always know when we post a new video, because I gotta be honest, they haven't actually announced this banner yet, but they've announced the stream for Lost Belt 2. That's the time frame we're in right now. So they gotta announce this banner soon. But I don't know when, so this video's getting shot, and it might show up suddenly at like a midnight or something. You never know. So notifications are important. And like it says at the front of the show, also consider supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to videos early, like this video, and it really helps us out and supports us. Alright, thanks so much, guys. Stay French, I guess. Enjoy your baguette, your croissant, your French fry. And I'll see you in the next Wanted, where we're gonna get Nightly. That was with a K.